What is sustainable development? Sustainable development is a development which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Sustainable development calls for concerted efforts towards building an inclusive, sustainable, and resilient future for people and the planet. There are three core elements of sustainable development: economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. Sustainable economic growth, achieving sustainable livelihood, living in harmony with nature, and appropriate technology are important for sustainable development. Environmental growth recognizes the link between health, the economy, and the environment. It involves investing in nature so that it is more connected, functions better, and provide more. The issue of economic growth and the environment essentially concerns the kinds of pressure that economic growth at the national and international level places on the environment over time. The relationship between ecology and the economy has become increasingly significant as humans gradually understand the impact that economic decisions have on the sustainability and equality of the planet. Economic growth is commonly defined as increases in total output from new resources or better use of existing resources. It is measured by increased real incomes per capita. The environmental impact of economic growth includes the increased consumption of non-renewable resources, higher levels of pollution, global warming, and the potential loss of environmental habitats. Sustainable economic growth means a rate of growth which can be maintained without creating other significant economic problems for future generations. There is clearly a trade-off between rapid economic growth today and growth in the future. Therefore, when we think in terms of economic growth, we realize that growth is the major economic goal of many nations. Thus, as a goal, a nation that can achieve economic growth will be better suited to meet the wants of individuals and resolve socio-economic problems, such as poverty, thereby ensuring the well-being of the economy and improving standard of living by raising incomes or providing jobs. In addition, economic growth can possibly even protect the environment by the creation of parks, reserves, and implementation of key policies. Consequently, some economists have argued that economic growth will eventually lead to an improvement in the environment. This may be so, but the more rapid our growth, consumption, and the use of our natural capital resources, the more waste we produce, the more prone we are to environmental degradation and exhaustion. Thus, with economic growth as our goal, it is likely to overshadow environmental concerns, placing the environment in the backseat while focused towards gaining health. However, despite this, it is interesting to note that when a country achieves a high standard of living, the people attach value to environmental amenities. In other words, as people become wealthier, they have more time to think about other things than their survival, and with this wealth can influence governments to improve the environment. This is a hard decision, as the promotion of economic growth is seen as the way to lift developing countries out of poverty and improve our standard of living. Nevertheless, we must stop and ask, what are the effects of economic growth on the environment? Many have asserted that even if wealthy nations are able to reduce pollution, economic growth will impose increasing stress on ecosystems. Therefore, we realize that environmental impacts are linked to economic growth. Because of the cumulative depletion of resources, land use changes with implication for water quality and biodiversity, rates of exploitation that exceed rates of replacement and waste generated. Although some may not focus on environmental issues as a consequence of growth, saying that growth is paramount, we must realize that degradation of the resource base will eventually put economy activity itself at risk, in turn affecting growth. Therefore, developing countries face a challenge of whether to follow the path of the more developed nations or alternatively do we focus on conservation.